Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the power of prayer. And we have one of our favorite people that has come and graced our presence again this morning to talk about stress management. Oh my. Good morning, Reverend Jacqueline Lulu Brown.
Great day, my beloved queen. How are you?
I am well. I am well. It is so good to be on here with you. Actually, live this morning. This is real. This is real. We are actually live. We got up early this morning. Early this morning to just come to you all. And
Yes.
this alone, when you think about it,
Mhm,
you know, this is kind of not the comfort zone. And I say that. I'm more of a night person. I think I've admitted that.
mhm.
I've been on with you at night. I've been on with you during the day, and I've
Yes.
been with you in the morning. So tell me again, what's your level? Are you the morning person when it comes to things like this, or what is it that you do to just start your day with God when we're talking
I'm the morning person at 5.
about
And I'm talking about waking up. I will automatically, something just clicks. And
Mhm.
between 5 and 5:15, I start to, blossom up.
That's a good
But that 4 a.m. period where it's still like in my brain, not only is it still dark, but it's still night. And so I tell people I am good at getting up at 5 a.m. and any time after. I was not a morning person, but what I decided is that I needed to change my language because I used to say all the time, "Oh, I'm not a morning person. Oh, I can't hate. I hate it when we have early morning meetings when I was working in corporate."
right.
And then one day I said, "I'm not going to say I'm not a morning person because, God met Adam and Eve in the garden, but it said in the dew.
In
And
the
we know in the morning when
right.
there's that fresh dew on the land or the grass or whatever. And so I made myself a morning person by changing my language. However, it's not before 5 a.m.
And that's reality. And as I even thought about it, I struggled. I
Mm,
struggled most mornings that I have to wake up.
right.
But I thought about the fact, as you just said, when we want to do something as well, we'll do it. So it is about changing our mindset. We've
It
talked about that. It's about changing our language.
is. Mhm.
And you can think about it as, in a way, it's stressful to do something that you aren't necessarily comfortable doing. And I had to think about that because I know, for instance, if right now, if we were leaving to go on a trip and it was to an island, we'd
Mm,
be up at the airport, happy to be at the airport, knowing that we're going to go to an island. So,
absolutely.
what is our excuse when you think about that? And then even as we're, of course, we're staying in the Word of God. When you're thinking about that, we know that Jesus got up early in the morning. I'm sure to spend time with His Father. And
Absolutely.
as we talk about that morning time, that is usually the only, and that's been my language, the only one I want to talk to early in the morning is the Lord. But He's even taken me out of that and us doing this. So it is important when you say change your language because that's where the first parts of the stress of life
Right.
will end when you say the right things out of your
Absolutely.
mouth. So definitely. So let us know what a week is like for you when you're talking about trying to eliminate the stress. When you and I were talking earlier,
Mhm.
you actually said something so profound. And the rest of this day is going to be wonderful.
Yes.
That's how we have to look at our days. So, how
It's
does that begin?
absolutely. Um, I think that if we really knew the power of our language, um, you know, in the book of James, it really talks a lot about the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And our words are so powerful. And we know that the power of death and life is in our tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard people sort of frown when people have discussions around laws of attraction and things like that. And I'll say you're really religious, because it's not about religion, it's about relationship. But
Mm,
you'll get your really religious people that'll say, "Oh, I don't deal with that universe stuff and
mhm,
what you speak, and I'm not into that." And I often ask them, "Did God create the universe?" I think he did. Does God own the universe, the earth, everything? And
mhm,
so what we put out in, and I said, well, call it atmosphere, but our words are powerful. Otherwise, God wouldn't have told us that that power is in our tongue. He wouldn't have told us that our tongue is a world of fire. And then I said, well, didn't Jesus use words, the
mm,
power of words,
right.
when he called forth Lazarus? There's just so many things that refer to our language. And so I would say a day really unfolds based on the words that I speak.
Mm,
And if my thoughts are, oh my gosh, something went wrong this morning, and if I begin to magnify that all day, my day will continuously go in a downward spiral
mhm,
based on the words that I'm saying. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have challenges, but the more I feed into the challenge and the more I talk about it, and the more I put the negative comments out into the atmosphere, I found the more aggravated and the worse things get. It's like being in traffic. I
right.
just sometimes have to sit back and say, I didn't purposely leave late. I
Mm,
can't help it that the highway shut down. God knows what's going on. God knows what he protected me from,
exactly.
because I could be up there in the accident, but I'm sitting back here in traffic. And I just begin to tell myself, I didn't cause this, and I'm going to be there when I get there. And I call someone and say, I don't know what's going on. Little things like that seem small, but the more aggravated people get, the more they magnify, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting, the
Mm,
more they bring stress. All of those are stressors, and stressors build. They're like little building blocks.
right.
And before you know it, by the end of the day, you are literally ready to explode. I'm not going to tell you every day is perfect like that, but I I set an intention that I am going to speak life and that more abundantly into each day. And when things come up, I just have to catch myself and say, mm-mm, don't
Mm,
say that. Don't even go there. And it's a discipline and it's an intention.
that is so true. I'm thinking about the fact that one of the things that people ask of me all the time is I make my living, and I think we say it this way, I make my living by using words, writing words, editing words, and everything. So years ago, God showed me when you are what we call a wordsmith, because
Yes.
we all have a title, we're wordsmiths. God is giving you the power to take care of yourself, bless other people, and do things as a speaker, as a teacher, all of those things.
Yes.
I have to watch the words that come out of my mouth. It's so intentional
Mhm.
that now it, in a way, even as we talk about stress, I find that if I'm not speaking the right words, I will start stressing myself out because I know better. I definitely know better. You can't say that. You're thinking that. Calm down. All of those factors. And even the most profound thing that we probably were taught, hopefully, as children, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
There you go.
That that no matter whether you grew up in a Christian household or anything else, if you just even know that as a foundation, that's part of what you can know and learn. We were talking about when you say people, talk about the universe. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, they're using the term spiritual. I'm spiritual. They made, that may be all that they have and that's their foundation. But it is a foundation of knowing what good is and just recognizing that in treating people the way that we know that
Right.
the Lord Jesus would have wanted people to be treated. But when it's starting at a foundation, especially for those who don't know him, and we go out from this day forward, go outside, speak to someone, good morning. That's the one thing you will always notice, no matter where you are, usually in this world every day.
Mhm.
People always say good morning. They
Yes.
don't say good afternoon. They may not even say good night. But that is even a whole thing with getting
Mhm.
up early in the morning. Because if you can greet another person, that's part of you setting the tone of giving kind words and just goodness out there. And
Yes.
then that's that continence that you'll hear someone say, what is it about you? And
Right.
if they find out, you are a Christian, you are a pastor, you are a chaplain, it's everything that we want to be for God.
Yes.
And that is the whole tone of the day.
Yes, it
You made,
is.
you made me think about something. I am home with my family.
Mm.
Part of that is I was going to go back home yesterday because I was visiting, and home's not that far away, but it started storming really, really bad. And, if you're paying attention, of course, our weather in this country has been a
Yes.
little challenging. There's been floods and flash floods, and people are getting hurt or even passing away. Do you know? I just remember hearing it. It started storming early in the day, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it did
Wow.
that throughout the day. All I knew and all I heard was, well, I'm just not going anywhere. I'm fine. I'm safe. I already know I've been on both roads, the main highway as well as the back way that people will often take to go around traffic. Do you know we watched the news last night?
Hmm.
7 o'clock news. The main road I would have used to try to avoid the other road,
Hmm.
they had to rescue people from that road. And this is not a little road. And I just remember hearing God, I'm needing to not only listen to the words I'm speaking because I just said, well, I'm not going anywhere. It was that simple. But I remember hearing, Lord, what words do you need to give me to know what to do today, meaning yesterday? Because I think it's safer to stay and it's safer to be quiet and know what I'm supposed to do. So when we're talking about stress, it makes me think about the fact of if you're listening, you can hear just as much as you can talk and hear yourself talk and hear others talk. And that's important because the quietness, the stillness of
Hmm.
knowing that God is speaking to you is one of the biggest stress relievers. We've been trying to talk about that all month. Like, what are our stress relievers? But believe it or not, being quiet has come to be one of the things that I'm recognizing is a stress reliever. Um, what do you think about that? Do you think sometimes when you talk, you you do more some days, or again, is it a daily thing? I'm thinking it's a daily thing.
I
Yeah.
find that when you're a teacher and a coach, you're talking so much. And I find that when I'm alone, not talking is because now I can hear and I can listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I find when I make sure that there is consistent meditation,
Mm-hmm.
because people confuse meditation and prayer. And prayer is our communication with our Heavenly Father. And but we're doing this. Wah, 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 wah. God, go over there. God, I need you, Jesus. I need you to go down the street. I need you to go over to go in the hospital and rescue that person and give that person a job. And we're just asking and talking and asking and talking. But when we are meditating, and our spirit is in tune with the spirit of God. And I tell people that it's not about religion, because when one defines the word religion, when you think about it, religion doesn't necessarily have anything to do with relationship. So I may say God, somebody else may say Adonai, somebody may say Yahweh,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody may say Krishna. As you go through all of the various, somebody may say Allah. It's not about religion, but it's about the relationship that we have developed with what and who we call our creator. So you and I will say God, we'll say Jesus, but it's about the relationship that we have. And so I find when I am taking the time and being quiet, when I'm not teaching and talking and teaching and talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just listening for the feedback. And it's the most glorious thing that God speaks to us through everything.
Right.
God can speak through the rain. God can speak through the changing of the leaves, the wind. If we listen and if we're in tune and if we are meditating, truly meditating where we're present in our mind, we're meditating to a place of presence, we
Mm-hmm.
will really be able to hear. And so I think that there is a level of listening, to your point, that
Mm-hmm.
we have to do.
Right.
Because if we're talking all the time, then where are we getting our direction from?
Right.
What's leading us other than the subliminal messages that we're getting from the sounds that we're hearing around us? Television in the background, commercials, and the subconscious is so powerful because what
Right.
many people will, they think that the conscious part of their brain is what's doing all the work. And the subconscious has everything in there. And depending on where we are in our life, those things come up into our consciousness. And so I just find that I have to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be quiet because as teachers and coaches, ministers,
Right.
we have to have a point in time where we are listening so we can move forward in our assignment and not be all over the place. You ever see someone that is so scattered?
Mm-hmm.
They're running at the speed of light and they just seem like they're scattered to the point of confusion.
Right.
And we know where confusion comes from.
Mm-hmm. Definitely
So
enemy.
I have to stay quiet and listen because I do not want to be in a state of confusion.
It makes me think about when you now, even how you've changed that, when you recognize that you don't want to be in that state, that you do need to be quiet. And even you could have, you're around people that
Yes.
are, kind of known for some confusion, and instead of, what we used to do,
Mhm,
of feeding into that, just
mhm.
being able to say, okay, Lord, bless them. They're starting, and you can hear it, and it's just a continuous, almost a continuous noise. And that's not going to say we're going to be perfect like that, because of course, we struggle as well with some of the things that we have to deal with. But
Mhm.
just again, being able to be quiet and not immediately going in ready to, in a way, fight with our words.
Right.
It is about being quiet and saying, okay, Lord, show me
Mhm.
what you want me to do in this situation. Thank you so much too for just even talking about prayer and meditation, because
Oh, you're welcome.
people are afraid when they hear that word meditate. They're afraid because they do think you're talking about, other cultures and things that other people are taught.
Yeah.
But when we're saying, and meditate is in the word of God,
Yes, it is.
part of that is to be able, again, like you said, be quiet and
Yes.
hear and listen. We talked about, you said we were talking about Adam and Eve in the garden, but
Mhm,
and you're talking about the dew of the morning, and I
mhm.
just remember them saying that God walked in the coolness of the day.
Yes.
And that's so, no matter how hot it is, even when you think about it, there's usually a cool of the day. It may
Yes.
be in the morning, even if you go to the desert, there's a cool of the day. There's a moment in time that's you're able to meditate, you're able to to think, you're able to hear. I was watching something recently where the person was actually deaf. And one of the things that made me think about what they were probably experiencing, they can't hear, but they can listen because they could actually read lips as well as they can
Wow.
also sign. But I thought to myself, what is it like that they can hear because they're not always constantly hearing themselves talk? So they can see what other people don't see because again, that voice in their head, which is them, which is what we're hearing now, our
Mhm.
own selves talk. Imagine if you didn't always constantly have that and you had to concentrate on others, on what's going on around you, because you need to listen because it does matter. It's a part of life and death to know what's going on.
Mhm.
And that's the power, like you said, the power of the tongue, the
Yes.
power of life and death. And you
Yes.
need to know what you need to do, what you need to speak, what you
Yes.
need to listen to.
Mhm.
So, in a way, you can even learn something from that, and that you can't hear yourself. That means you should be hearing others. Turn it off.
Exactly.
Turn this off. So
Yes.
just
Yes.
be quiet. So
Exactly. Uh James Brown had the song and part of the chorus was talking loud and saying nothing.
that's one of my mom and I favorite things
Yeah.
to reference. I love it.
Yeah. And so I tell people
Yes.
I do my very best to make sure that I'm talking loud and saying something.
Saying
I'm
something.
not saying nothing, I'm saying something, but I had to be quiet and listen first. And, when we were talking about meditation,
Yeah.
and God's word tells us to meditate on the word.
On the
We're
word.
supposed to meditate. Well, if we're meditating on the word, we're not talking. We're actually
Mm.
letting the word speak back to us. And when we have literally given, sometimes let me back up a second. Sometimes we don't have anything inside to pull back on.
Mm.
So number one, we have to make sure that we are meditating and putting something on the inside
Mhm.
so that we now have something to go back to. And when we have put that God's word down on the inside and we can meditate on it. And
Mm.
as we're meditating on it, it actually is speaking back to us. And more importantly, we can speak into our situations with it. And we just need to meditate and let it come forward. But if we didn't put anything there to begin with,
Right.
there's nothing to meditate on.
Right. I love that. Definitely, definitely. One of the things about this time of the day as well,
Mm,
awaking to,
yes.
it's wonderful to see the sunrise, but it's wonderful to actually see the darkness come into the light.
Ooh,
And as you and I were communicating before we got on to make sure we got on at the appointed time,
yes.
I just watched. I got an opportunity to see the sun come up,
Hmm.
and it was a something I would have never expected today to do, and it had me thinking about the reflection of, we have these summertime days and they're long,
Right.
and there's a lot going on throughout the day, but so you have to be intentional. Same way we're saying we're being intentional with our words, but you have to be intentional to find the things that you can do throughout the day to eliminate that stress, have
Mhm.
that quiet time, have those moments. Um, Even I think about walking around. I've been really intentional these last few weeks to walk around with more things in my bag that make me have to look at
Mm,
words differently. We'll get devotions each day, and we're talking to you all because we, in a way, we want to even know what you're doing, of
mhm,
course, to eliminate stress, and hopefully you are.
mhm,
What are you doing differently? And if you can share, we want to know. That's why we're sharing with you.
mhm.
But just to be intentional on what'll make me go back to reading that Word of God during the course of the day. It may just be flipping a calendar that has devotions on it. It may be carrying the small Bible around so that I can go in. It may be putting on a worship song on
Mhm.
purpose because I need to put my mind, Lord, keep my mind stayed on you
Mhm.
because this is going on right now and that's going on right now. And there's just a lot of chatter. That's
Yes.
one of those words. There's a lot of chatter. I even realize that there's something that I have to do a few times a week. And we know we're still doing the Zoom life or we're still doing the little box life as we're all looking at each other still on computer screens, even though we're getting a chance to meet and greet each other. But we're getting that chance as we're coming out of this to retreat
Yes.
together. Because the first time Lulu and I actually got to see each other,
Yes.
we were on retreating, and I got to do that this past weekend. And it
Wonderful.
was just, and I got to go to one of my favorite places. It's some place I go all the time, and friends came there, so I got
Mhm.
a chance to do that. But just that sitting in that stillness and
Mhm.
making a conscious effort to figure out each day what can I do
Yes.
to eliminate the stress even more and more and more. What is that? So that's a question I started asking myself each day.
Mhm.
And hopefully a month from now, there'll even be some more reflection. But what practice, and I'm going to use that word, what have
Mhm.
you started doing just this year alone?
This year, I've started to do more of the worship.
Mm,
And at the same token, in that worship, to take communion.
mm-hmm,
There is a peace because God's word says, do this in remembrance of me. Because as often, and this is where we move away from religion,
mm-hmm,
organized religion, and we move into relationship. And it says, as often as ye eat and ye drink, ye do it in remembrance. So we are remembering.
mm,
And who said that you can only do it on first Sunday?
right.
As I was coming up, we wore white on first Sunday because we were going to take communion.
Communion, yep.
Okay, well, who came up with that? And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying is that there's so much that we miss out on from a relationship perspective because we have been indoctrinated with a lot of what is um, Western
Mm-hmm,
European, and that's going to sound insulting. It's not meant to be.
mm-hmm,
It's just these rituals about you're going to take communion on this Sunday. You're going to, and it doesn't make a difference whether you're Catholic or Protestant.
mm-hmm,
We've got a lot of different, what people consider to be Christianity under this one blanket of Protestant. And then there's Catholic and Catholicism, and then there's Judaism. But out of all of these things, if there's no relationship,
mm-hmm,
you can practice everything that is in the Torah, the Quran, the King James Bible, and all the other Bibles that people have put into print. But there has to be relationship. And so I wanted to go to a deeper level. And I said, I'm going to take communion as often as I want.
right.
When I feel the need that I need to get closer, I'm going through a really tough week. I'm going through some really tough days. And it may be a period of time where in the morning, when I'm doing my daily prayer, I may take communion every day for a week, two
Right,
weeks, a month.
right.
I do it based on what my spirit needs, and it makes it more personal. One of the reasons why I love the Psalms is because if you want to understand the human experience between us and God, it's in the Psalms.
Mm-hmm,
David wrote about it. Solomon wrote about it. Um, David's other son, I believe it was Asaph, wrote about it. There are other authors. David's probably the primary author in Psalms, but there's so many different authors in Psalms, but there is a human experience in it.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, they're going through something, they're running for their lives, or they're just talking about what they're going through in a given moment. And it's sort of the same way in Proverbs.
Right.
So, Proverbs and Psalms are extremely relatable to the human part of what we go through on a daily basis. And this year, I've just found that I wanted to step up my relationship, and my relationship is personal, and it wasn't going to go to a deeper level by me going to church or getting on church Zoom or following a particular ritual at a designated time of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like understanding what that means. As often as ye eat and drink, ye do it in remembrance of me. And that's the key piece right there. And if you need to do it more often, then I think someone should be able to do that. And then the other second piece is moving away from being critical
Mm-hmm.
of and allowing people to pull me into their opinion about other faiths and cultures. Because if you think about religion, and again, I'm using religion, I didn't say relationship, I didn't say salvation. Religion has caused such a divide.
Right.
We have wars that still take place to this day because of what? Religion.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can take the religion out of it and we can respect one another as human beings and we can come together and really literally love the way that we are told to love. And it's loving one another as we love ourselves. And that's another piece that people miss.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the inability for people to love each other is because they don't love themselves.
Right.
And they don't love themselves because stress, we're talking about stress. Stress and the cares of this world have stomped out
Mm-hmm.
love. And what's being replaced with it is I got, where there, it's like the hamster on the wheel, or it's sort of like spinning on ice. If anyone, I'm born and raised up north, even though I live in the South now. So I remember long before four-wheel drive and all these things we have now. I remember in the 60s being a kid and being stuck, on ice, and those back wheels just keep spinning. And
Goodness.
your parent, or whoever you're in the car with, is just trying to, like, if I could just get some traction to get off this ice. And sometimes our life can become that way from the stresses. We're
Mm-hmm.
so stressed out and our wheels are just spinning, but we're not going anywhere. And we don't realize that you have got to do something different. You can't stay in that particular place. And it's funny that we're talking about stresses and burnout, because the other piece that sometimes we don't realize is we are living in fight flight on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And our bodies are not meant to do that. There's a specific reason, and there's a physical response when we are in fight flight, but it's not meant to stay there. But imagine being in fight flight every day, all day, for long, long, long periods of time, for years. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that because that was me at one time. And that is the breeding ground for disease.
Right.
Fight, flight, and stress is dis-ease. And when you think about the word disease, The root of disease begins with dis-ease in our minds, in our bodies, and
Mhm.
now they manifest themselves with all these different diseases. But the root of it very often is stress. Something triggered it.
Mhm.
But we blame everything but our lifestyle and stress and operating in fight flight. We blame eating, and that does have, I don't want people, our listeners, to think that I'm disregarding that what we eat is not important, but we're quick to blame
Mhm.
eating what we eat. High blood pressure. We want the whole thing with high blood pressure to be, well, it's because of what you're eating.
Right.
That's a contributor.
Right.
But something is at dis-ease in the body that is causing the blood pressure to go up. And you can't just throw that out the window. And so there's so much to this stress and overcoming burnout. And if we don't start having real conversation and
Mhm.
being honest about how we feel and coming from behind the mask that people wear throughout days and weeks and months and years, and everything's perfect when everything is not perfect. And until we address those stressors and that burnout and allow ourselves to become healed at the root of
Mhm.
what's stressing us, things, they continue. The hamster wheel continues to turn,
Mhm.
and the tires continue to spin on ice without gaining traction. That makes sense.
Definitely. You spoke to my heart when you said about, having to, in a way, even communicate that. That's one of the things that we get to do, in different cultures and
Yes.
speak to people and actually teach them
Mhm,
how to communicate on multiple levels and different communities
mhm.
and worldwide. And that's important because our own little bubble, we talked about the hamster spinning, but that own little bubble that we have, it's not going to get bigger. It's
No.
probably going to implode if you just keep putting in, bad eating,
Yes.
stressful situations, circumstances, and again, not deal with what we know we can start with first in prayer. But if,
Exactly.
um, oh, someone said it this weekend, I believe they actually said, do prayer, go to, go to, go to Jesus and ask him though to maybe send you to the right counselor. And I'm not saying it the right way, but
Oh, yes, you are.
but the way they said it, because it kind of rhymed, of course. I wish I could. I want to remember by next week so I can definitely quote it because it
Mm,
was something that they said. But it was just, part of that prayer life is if you need more help, if you need to get beyond bad eating habits and again, stressful situations, stressful people, stressful life. Number one, this is the time to do it. We've
yes.
all, been able to come out from behind the mask,
Mhm.
forced to wear them, all of us. And then now we're starting to come from behind them a little bit. That's great. But now what?
Right.
Aren't
And
you
it
ready for whatever the what is?
yes. And
Yeah.
it takes that, um, being totally transparent,
Mhm.
as I often am. I was a stress eater and an emotional eater.
Mhm.
And I would I was working in corporate,
Mhm.
and working remotely was I was working remotely going back, I wanna say probably 25, almost 30 years ago,
Mhm.
because the technology was there. So we were communicating, and then when there was the big outsourcing wave where
Mhm.
people began to experience that when they called customer service, they were speaking to someone in a different country.
Exactly.
And when that wave was taking place, I was traveling to different countries because the company I was working for, we were outsourcing. And
Mhm.
so this whole remote piece of it was already there.
Mhm.
And it sort of was a little bit of a breeding ground for stress if you didn't know how to manage it.
Right.
And because because you're working from home, there's something in the brain that made, and I'll say many of us, because I've had peers that said they went through the same thing, that you had to work harder or longer hours because you were sitting in your home and not behind a desk. And so that brought about burnout. And then that burnout and that stress starts to change your behavior. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for some people, maybe they were snapping at their family. Maybe they were cantankerous. Nobody wanted to come home because you've been working from home all day and you're all stressed out and you're in this cantankerous mood and nobody wants to deal with you.
Right.
Or maybe your out is eating, and I was a stress emotional eater.
Mm.
I would be stressed and I would go off camera and I would go and literally cook something that was a comfort food.
Of course. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even take time to put it in the bowl. I would eat it right out of the pot. And I'm talking about a comfort food that is not good for you to begin with, but if you eat a small portion of it, it's okay. But I'm talking about overeating portions of it and it affecting my health in a
Right.
very, very negative way. But to your point, I had to go to the root of what was causing, because believe it or not, it wasn't work. There
Mm-hmm.
was another root beneath that layer. The
Right.
cause and what was happening at work were the trigger. And so I had to go deep and I had to go to the root of it. Because if you don't go and destroy the root, that thing is going to keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where, rather it's mental wellness, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
coaching, we all have to go and be led to ask the question in our meditation,
Right.
what is it that I need? And I guarantee you, God will give you the answer to what you need. But then we have to have the courage to go and get the help. And
Definitely.
that's what I did. And in going and getting the help, that's when you start going deeper and deeper to the root. And I learned, I didn't understand what it meant, but many years ago, and I had someone that was helping me go through the exercise of the mapping out, what your personal life's map is. And what came up is what I'm here to learn, I'm here to teach. I did
Mm-hmm.
not realize really what that meant. And when I started coming through some things, and I was like, okay, I learned this, and now I have to go and teach it. And so, as a minister, and people often tell me, "Oh my God, I've never heard a reverend like you. I never heard anyone that's an elder and a church elder that talks like you and teaches like you." And that's because I'm what is needed, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Amen.
I'm what we sort of get down and dirty and go to those roots and dig them up and kill them versus making out like we're okay. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you gloss over these things, it's going to come back. Those stresses are going to continue to happen because there's something much deeper at the root. And until we go and dig up those roots, and I share with people, if you cut down a tree, people cut down trees. Oh, this is dangerous. I'm going to cut this tree down.
Mm-hmm.
The roots never stop growing. The roots are going to continue to spread.
Until you kill them.
And that's why people make so much money cutting trees down. People make a lot of money. But you want to know where the real money is? Bringing that machine and grinding up the stump and the roots. Because they come in with a special machine and they grind that stump and they go down and they grind up those roots. Because those roots are going to continue to spread. And if it's near your concrete or your sidewalk or your driveway, what happens? You look back 2, 3 years and it's starting to break and bubble up
Mm.
because the roots are now spreading. And so it's so important to go to the root and kill it.
Tell it.
But you have to identify it, you have to be willing to face it, and then you have to be willing to get rid of it. And stress is just something that I tell people, when people have onset diabetes, people have, because they have this new term for it. They'll say onset. You
Mindset.
weren't born with it, but you've got this onset diabetes because now you're older and some things are not happening in your body and your insulin, and oop, you got diabetes now. It's onset.
Right.
Really? You really believe that you've gone through your whole life? There are triggers that are happening in our body. Oh, you're going to have belly fat after you go through menopause. And I really, truly pray that someone's hearing something
Mhm.
that is going to help them to
Right.
be free. We have to get free of these things because it's truly destroying our lives. We're told that middle age spread. Really?
Doesn't
What
happen.
the heck is that? And who said that you're just supposed to accept it? Oh, well, the middle age spread, and now it's supposed to be okay. When a lot of times it's not middle age spread, it's you're stressed out and you're making so much cortisol. And what happens? That's belly fat.
Belly fat. Right.
All of that stress, that cortisol, it turns into belly fat. And then that turns into the onset diabetes. So there's so much that stress is at the root. And then language. How are you today? Girl, I'm stressed out.
Hmm. Back to those words.
Girl, I'm so stressed.
Right.
And the more you say you're stressed, the more
More
you
stress.
feel the stress. And this seems like these are just simple things. Oh, you're not telling us anything we don't know. Well, it's not about whether you know it. It's about, are you doing something about it?
Hmm.
We have to do something about it. And I've learned so much from different cultures. I've learned why the obesity rate is so much lower in other countries than it is in the United States.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quite honestly, show me one country that is as obese as the US. I mean, I know that there's obesity throughout the world,
Hmm.
but we are supersizing on steroids because everything is the supersize,
Hmm.
2 for 1.
The bigger the better.
And thank you. And then everything is, you know, buy one, get two, and
Yeah.
it's so unhealthy.
It is.
It's so unhealthy. A lot of people don't believe the story about the man that put the McDonald's burger in a coat pocket, or it found something in a coat pocket and it didn't rot. Now, I can't personally say attest to that because I've never tried it. But I will tell you something that my husband did. There was, how children are in your neighborhood and they litter. So someone had taken a bag of Doritos, and the next thing you know, the bag with some of the Doritos is in our driveway. And my husband did an experiment. He left the Doritos there. The Doritos, after months, the Doritos did not rot. They did not, nothing happened to them. But here's what's interesting: the ants never ate the Doritos.
Hmm.
The ants did not eat the Doritos, but we think it's okay to take something that is so orange, it's all over your fingers, and snack on it. And so, we're putting these what are supposed to be comfort foods in our body, and we're destroying it because we have not gone to, and I'm going back to the root of the stressors.
Definitely.
And we've just accepted a lot of what's told to us. Get on medication. Well, just going to take high blood pressure medicine versus, okay, What is at the root of what's making your blood pressure climb? And I don't have anything against medicine. I believe that natural, healthy lifestyle and sometimes medication go neck and neck. If
Yeah.
you and I catch a germ or a cold, like we traveled, you and I traveled over to the Dominican,
Hmm.
and we know that airports and airplanes are probably the most germy
Hmm.
disease places that you can travel. And very often you may come back with a sniffle or a cough. What do? We take something that makes it go away. So this isn't about anti medicine. This is about preventative maintenance. It's about not doing things because we're all stressed out. It's one thing to catch a cold while traveling. It's something else to have onset diabetes because we've been stressing and emotionally eating for the past 10 years. That's something totally different.
Hmm. I think you just summed it up. When I think about prayer,
Mm,
that is preventative maintenance
yes.
and for life.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
all starts from that.
Hmm.
And as you may have seen, I've been kind of always leaving homework because that's what us teachers and coaches do.
Right.
But we've been saying it. What is your what?
Mm,
What is your what? Is it prayer? Is it preventative maintenance? Are you treating it that way? Is it better eating?
mm,
Is it just better lifestyle?
yes.
Are you talking loud and saying nothing?
Mm,
Or are you just sitting down and listening and taking it all in? And then, like this time next week and this time next month, as I asked you, like, what have you been doing this year? And what have I been talking about? I've been doing this year to make it better. You made me think about it because that was part of one of the things as well that I made a decision in the last few hours, um, because of some things that did happen yesterday. Is
mm.
growing up, communion was daily because I went to Catholic school.
See.
So it was actually harder for me not to have communion at church every Sunday than vice versa when I started going to different denominations. But I speak that to say, what do you need to do? What
Mm,
is your what? What are you using and needing? And it's okay to use that word. What are you using that God has given us to not have that stress,
mhm.
to get closer to Him, to make your life better so that you can serve Him even more? Because
Exactly.
that's part of what we do. That's part of the joy that we get and in the talking and the speaking, because we know that God has given us something that's going to make things better, that's going to help be less stressful, to be
Mhm,
preventative. The lessons learned on
mhm.
make it right. Um, and that starts with the power of prayer. But yeah, what is your what? We're going to share what our what is. We've already kind of shared what our what is, but share with us what your what is. So, Reverend Lulu, you,
Sure.
you joined us today. So, yeah, what is your what, and what are we going to leave the people today with? The most profound thing we can say today about the power and stress
Okay.
management.
So my what
Yeah.
is to engage in more prayer and meditation and
Amen.
shutting out the voices. My
Amen.
what is somewhat disconnecting. I need to know if it's going to rain. I need the weather, but I don't need to hear all of the chatter and the negative that the media is controlling.
Mm-hmm.
My what is putting more time into my meditation,
Yeah.
my prayer, the things that are most important, whether it's family, my business, ministry, versus saying I don't have time because I got so much going on. And one of the biggest what's is I put the phone down. I put the
Mm.
phone down. I can't remember, but I want to say there's a singer, and I'm not gonna remember who she is, but she sings that song, "I Can Make You Put Your Phone Down." And I, for some reason, I want to say Erica Badu. I don't know because I'm not the biggest expert on music, but we need to put our phone down.
We do need a better phone down.
We need to put the phone down because we don't have time for anything else. But the phone is at the table, it's at the dinner table. It's nearby where we're constantly looking at it. We can't meet together and have a meal in a restaurant without looking at the phone. So it's taking those things that distract 24/7. Now, if you have a business, I get it. But 24/7, at some point, we have to disconnect. So I'm disconnecting from things that I didn't disconnect from 5 years ago. It's just a conscious decision. And here's the thing, my quality of life improved, it didn't get worse. I'm no less of who I am. I my business is not failing because I've disconnected from some things. It's just I've made a conscious decision that I am going to focus on those things that remove and eliminate stress.
Period. As they say, period. Definitely. Definitely. Well, we have shared.
Yes.
We hope that it helps with some of your stress management. And we want you to know that we are here through the power of prayer.
Mhm,
But we want to hear what your what is and share that with us and discover for yourself what prayer can do, but
mhm.
also what God can do that He's going to tell you to go to the next levels of things that you need to do to get closer to Him, to listen, to hear.
Yes.
So we thank you this morning for joining us on the power of prayer. We
Okay.
will be back again soon. And until, continue to be blessed, continue to not stress,
Mm.
and definitely get some rest. We are out for this day. Be blessed.